Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the man of tomorrow. And with me today, I have a special guest. As I like to do, I seek out and find other super podcasters. Today, I have Mr. Shaun Stackhouse. Welcome, Shaun.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm glad to be here.
Man, I'm glad to be here too. We've commented on stuff online, and I think you commented on like a live video we did before, and
Yep.
we've chatted, and you had posted something, and I was like, let's get on here and chat. So here we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always fun. And what's funny is right before we got on here and started talking, my daughter came downstairs, and I was gonna tell Shaun something. I was like, you know what? I'll wait till we record. Have you ever heard of the game Headbands?
No.
Okay, it's like this kid's game. It's fun for all, but like you wear a headband, and what it is like a deck of cards, and you shuffle, and you put the card on like the person's forehead, and they can't see it, and then they have to ask questions like, "Am I an object, a food, something like that?" And then they have to kind of whittle it down. Well, yesterday the kids and I sat and show you for all those people who can't see, and made our own DC characters collection
nice.
with we started using stickers and then some old comic books that we had that were just lying around that were all tore up, and then we started printing stuff off and made our own DC characters with some index cards for headbands. And we sat and I played with my 8 and 6-year-old yesterday and played what DC character am I. So
that's so cool, dude. I could sit in a room with a kid and do that all day long. I'd be fine.
The best one that my son got that I was not sure if because I tried to pick characters that they've seen from the cartoons, they know from the movies, and from the Injustice video games.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a couple characters that maybe they don't know, maybe I don't know. But they surprised me with the one my son got that surprised me was Booster Gold. He's like, "Am I Booster Gold?" I was like, "Yes, you are."
Booster Gold's not one that would come around all that much. So
exactly, that's why I was like, "Hey, all right, good job, son."
Yeah, I'm hoping that we see Booster Gold up in the new DCU sometime soon.
And okay, so part of what we're going to do today is we're going to get to that new cartoon thing that you've heard of this cartoon, Superman cartoon.
Yeah, My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. We're going to get to that, but right now we're just going to kind of geek out about just news and Superman fandom. Cool. But I always ask any first super guest, how did you get into the character? Like, what was your introduction? Where did you first meet the Man of Steel?
I anticipated this might be a question. All right, so we're going to have to go back to 1983, and I was heavily involved in He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Yeah, and that was like my thing until my mom brought home 2 figures from the Kenner Power collection. She brought home Superman and Batman, and then after that I had the Hall of Justice playset, and I had like some of the vehicles, and I didn't understand why Superman needed like a ship to fly around in. I'm like, he's supposed to breathe in the air, or he doesn't need to breathe or whatever. So yeah, about 83, 84, when those Kenner superpower collections were going like bonkers, I was right in the middle of it. So, and that would have been also 84, about a year or so after Superman 3 came out, and my mom took me to see that after school one day as a matinee at a dollar theater. And yeah,
those were the days.
Yeah, I know. But no, I've been riding with Superman as my number one guy ever since, man.
That's awesome. Do you have a particular favorite version? It can be live action, it can be animation. Is there one that that particularly hits you the strongest?
I do. Let me get this.
Yeah, you're cool. This is the fun part about doing this like we are.
This is when he comes back to life.
Nice.
This is like, I know there's nothing special about this comic, but that pose, that hair, that costume, this is peak Superman to me.
All right. Hey, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've said that pose, that costume. Man, I'm horrible with numbers. It's like my weakness. It's my kryptonite. Like one of my favorite Superman comics is one I had got with a toy. and I don't even remember what toy, but it was right during the Electric Blue when it started. But what
Yeah.
it was a issue of Superman that kind of summed up his entire journey. So like it was this nice little, if you hadn't been reading Superman, and I got that as a kid, and I just loved it because I knew him from cartoons, I knew him from the
Yeah.
movies, but I hadn't really got into the comics as much. And this comic would just summed up everything that kind of had been going on post crisis, like his whole journey up to him being Electric Blue.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and then there was Red as well.
yep. And I have that one. I bought that one. It's funny because I
See,
have that
I've
one.
never bought either of those.
Mhm.
And I found. Did you see the thing I posted on Twitter yesterday that showing the origins of Superman Red and Superman Blue? It's from
Mhm.
like, yeah, I had no idea. And these were from like this like 60s or
90s.
70s, maybe
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
50s.
that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's that quick one. Yeah, it's so fascinating. Um, just that whole thing, and then because the big famous ones from the Electric era,
yeah.
but yeah, how it started even back then in the '60s. Because we did a whole thing. Because like that's what me and James's jokes all about. Because I always do blue and he always does red as his color scheme.
Oh, that's cool.
So, who is your favorite live action Superman? There are
Christopher
no,
Reeve.
I'll say there are no wrong answers here, as long as you
Chris
can give me an argument of why.
Christopher Reeve to me looks like he walked right out of the pages of a comic book.
Makes sense.
And I mean, the way he carried himself, in the movies, the family,
Hmm.
the people, you've got to protect the people. That was Superman. And I think Henry Cavill is. I think he could have done the exact same thing if his agent and the different people in charge didn't screw him over.
I
You know?
think the biggest miss for him was not giving him a solo Superman sequel
Yes.
before
Before
going.
BVS.
Yes, before branching into creating. Because I've said this a bunch of times that like um what do you call it? There is like Man of Steel was never set up to be the launch of a universe. It's so insulary.
Yeah,
Um,
I
but
agree
then
with
they
that.
tried to make it because it wasn't planned. It was supposed to be the Dark Knight's version of Superman. The
Which
Batman Begins of
yeah,
Superman.
I
So
had
it
a lot
was.
of I had a lot of issues with that coming right out because that is not Superman to me. Superman's not a dark character, but I figured that we could get through Man of Steel 1 by Man of Steel 2, that should be what gives us the hopeful traditional Superman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 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 totally. I excuse me. I completely understand. I understand that way of thinking, but then they decided to change the course. So, all right, next question. Favorite Superman movie?
Hmm. Superman 2 of the Donner Cut.
Mm, nice. I have a high respect for the Donner Cut. I really, I like it a lot. And there's only like I think the only thing I like in Superman 2, the Lester cut, really is the general where you step outside line.
Yeah, I do like that. I
And I
do
think
like
that's,
that one.
I really, because like I watched them there for a while. Like I watched them like at the same time. I watched them back to back. I took notes. And there's little things in it that like blur that I can't remember which is which. There's
Yeah.
some things that stand out very prominently.
Yep.
Um, because I tell a story all the time. Like for the longest time when I was a kid, I didn't realize what was Superman the movie and what was Superman 2
Yeah, I
because
didn't either.
I had it taped from TV for the longest time. Um, and it was both of them, and I just didn't realize.
You just had them on one cassette.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was the two different movies, and
You just thought this was one super long movie.
but you didn't even think about it. You just watched it, and you
Yeah.
walked away for a while and came back to the TV, and you're a kid. You just take it all in. So,
Yep.
um, let's see. Next basic super question. Hmm. I don't know. I have a list usually, but I couldn't find it. But I know a lot of it's just the same repeat. Are you for live action? Are you a Trunks or no Trunks man?
Oh, I got to go with Trunks.
What I think I was listening to you talk earlier about like, and we'll get into this here in a minute. We'll just get into it now. We'll use it as a segue. With
Okay.
Superman Legacy, you and I started talking about this online. And I was like, we'll just hold it. We'll hold
Yeah.
it till we chat.
Yep. Yep.
I was listening to you talk a little bit. I really think, and you said this too, that there's going to be more of this traditionalism in this film.
I think so. That has to be.
And I agree with that. I think even from the casting gives you a sense, because you know how like you'll cast and you'll be like, oh, I can see it, or I'll wait to
Mhm.
see what the actor does. I feel like with the casting that we've got so far for Superman and Lois, you just look at them and you're like, yes,
Yeah.
I
Oh
see it.
yeah.
Like there's
They
no
look.
squint, there's no like, okay, I can see it. You know, you're just
You
like,
got all you got to
yeah,
do is make both of their hair brown, like or dark black.
she needs to be black or dark brown or black, and he needs to be black.
He's black. Yeah.
I'm big on hair color. I've said this many times.
Christopher Reeve was like a ginger almost,
Yeah, he
and
was
he
light.
dyed his hair every time.
That's how it should be. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's part of the character's traits.
Yep.
Okay.
So dye that hair. You get that hair dyed. You get in your suit, and I guarantee you that he's gonna look like the dude, man.
So I was thinking about when you're talking about the costume.
Mm-hmm.
I have this kind of, because you were talking about the symbol. You want just the bigger, more traditional symbol.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this like, yes, I want it, but at the same time, I want it to have something that makes it its own. Because it's the marketing in me. You know, it's like even like you look at Chris's symbol, Dean's symbol are pretty much indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, Brandon Routh has his own styles. I say
Yeah.
styles because he got two of them.
Right.
Technically, Henry got two. Tom never got his own when he did, on Smallville and everything.
No, that was just a reuse of returns, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And so I understand where you're coming from with like, and even Tyler's symbol on Superman and Lois is pretty
It's not bad.
standard. It's pretty standard, except it has a little the texture to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm kind of in this spot where I want it to have its own little bit of difference, just enough that when I look at it, like from a marketing point of view, I can be, oh, that's from Legacy. Like
Yeah.
that's my Legacy Superman T-shirt, or that's my like, my Superman Returns, my Man of Steel shirt. Like it's still the same character because we've seen that, especially bringing up the other guy
I
in
mean, look,
Batman.
if they want to go with the chest emblem that is in My Adventures with Superman in live action or something close to that, I'm fine with that.
See
That's not what I would choose, but
yeah,
you could definitely make that say, okay, well, this belongs to this era.
I feel like there's something they can do that's slight enough that you don't really notice it, but it works. You know,
Yeah,
like
I can see that.
the Kingdom Come style is a little different. Even heck,
Yeah,
even I love that I get to say this. First of all, even the Nick Cage style S has its
yeah,
own little signature to it.
bro. His people were hating on Nick Cage after that cameo, but that suit, like where you actually see him standing in the suit, like it's bright and popping. That
Mm,
suit is pretty badass.
man, tell me, you've seen the documentary, right?
Yo, yeah. But I knew about this well before the documentary even hit because I had a Superman magazine and it was talking about this movie that Tim Burton was going to do, Superman Returns, and I read all about it. I saw all the initial images. I still have the magazine in my long box.
That's awesome because I'm trying to think. It was one of those like I used to buy movie magazines all the time, and it was like upcoming movies in some sort of production, and it was the first time I read about they were going to do this Lord of the Rings thing down the line.
Yeah.
That New Line looked at it, and then it had a blip about Superman lives in it. So like I knew about it, but when I first saw the first trailer for that documentary,
Yeah.
I was so excited. And then it kept getting pushed out more because they actually, when that trailer hit, got funding for it and was able to go and do more. And when that thing pre-launched for purchase, I bought the most expensive package because I was like, I want to support this, and I love that documentary. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite documentaries. Um, so I was super excited with the Flash cameo of the Nick Cage Superman.
Oh, me too.
Um,
Because I knew exactly why he was there. There
and
was
then
no question in my mind of like, yep, that's he's fighting the Spider-Man. I know, I know.
so with thinking about that, because like the costume they used in the Flash is the costume design that they had been testing him for his basic Superman costume.
Right.
And in that, he has trunks,
Mm-hmm.
but they're a little bit more just crotchal, I guess you could
Kind
say,
of.
like because they kind of come up higher on the hips.
Yeah, and I can see how you would assume such things, but yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I totally
And
see what
then
you're saying.
I think the best looking trunks that we've had was the Brandon Routh Kingdom Come style suit.
Oh yeah, yeah, that suit was fire.
So that suit, I think about that. And I think on our poll, we had a whole discussion on Superman suits. That one won out as best live action suit. And I kind of have that in my mind right now. I really like the Superman and Lois season 3 suit.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my two favorite live action suits.
Okay, okay.
Um,
I mean that makes sense. They're all really, really good suits. But Brandon, of course, his suit winning just reconnects to Christopher Reeve because he was playing his still in Crisis. He was playing his Christopher Reeve's
See,
character.
I have a whole theory. Okay, I'm gonna throw this at you.
Okay.
I have officially decided that Brandon is not playing Christopher Reeve directly. He's playing Christopher Reeve style adjacent.
Okay.
And my thought is because with the whole like originally when that movie came out it was supposed to, erase kind of 3 and 4 and pick up
Right. Right.
and
Right.
be,
Yeah.
but we've had so much time. We've had him play Superman twice now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. We have.
then, having Chris appear in the Flash. And then I got to think about, what? It makes more sense for Brandon after Crisis. Just he's on his own Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's close to Chris's Earth, but it just because I feel like he plays close enough to Chris, but then the world around him doesn't play that.
No.
So Kate Bosworth isn't playing Margot Kidder. Franklin Jello is not Jackie Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
No, I
I'm
get
looking
you.
at I say all this because I feel like he's his own Superman. And I think rewatching because me and my wife I asked her, we were Superman Day came up. So which one do you want to watch? And she's like, let's watch Returns. I haven't watched it in a long time. So her and I watched that together with fresh eyes because I always like to use her as a sounding board. And we talked about the same kind of concept of Brandon's. And I just feel like I got the honor to meet him back in September. And I'm just like, you know what? He deserves to be not seen as Chris 2.0,
No,
but
you're
him,
right. You're right.
himself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just
I agree.
that's just where I've come around to it. Like, because I feel like, even if they really did want him to be Chris, going back to what you said, they should have done his suit more like
With
Chris's suit.
Chris's suit. Yeah. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Superman Returns was pitched to take place after Superman 2.
Yeah.
That's where it was in the timeline.
So and
If you ever get a chance to speak with Robert Meyer Burnett, he has
mhm.
an entire backstory on that.
It's an amazing like just of a story to listen to of how that movie came to be
Yeah.
because it's so convoluted and twisty.
Yeah. If you his DMs are open,
Uh-huh.
send him a DM and say, hey man, I'm interested in the backstory of Superman Returns. He was involved in it, and I'm sure that he would love to come on and like just talk like an hour and
Yeah.
just give you everything.
Yeah, we'll get that hooked up in the future.
Because all of the stuff that he's going to talk about is what was supposed to be in the beginning of the movie, but scrapped at the last second.
Okay, yeah, so we're gonna get him on here.
Yeah,
We'll talk more after we're done.
yeah.
But we're talking about costume for David coming up is like if they can do the trunks similar to way they did the Kingdom Come style, where they're a little bit more full.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think even the Superman Returns trunks aren't too bad. Um, I think there's a way to do it and it not look as off-putting.
yeah.
So I'm curious because we're going back to saying like doing Superman to where it just looks like that Superman, not like a take or an interpretation.
Mhm.
It's just that's it.
Yeah. Well, and it can be any type of material because he has that energy that he makes throughout his body, so his clothes are protected.
Mm-hmm.
Basically from that force field that's on his body, and so I mean, even in the comics when they said that his mom made his suit, that's why his suits don't get destroyed. Going up against these huge aliens.
It's the aura, his
Yeah, his
bioelectric
aura.
aura.
Yep.
I like. I kind of am in this torn. Like, I really liked a lot of the steps they made on Superman and Lois because I
Hmm.
really like that he has his first suit that his mom makes him, which is the very
Yeah.
Max Fleischer inspired. And then I
Yeah.
kind of figure he got the second suit probably from the Fortress. That's my
Yeah.
head
Yeah.
canon. It just
How
feels
do you,
right.
how do you feel about so many people out there on the internet wanting this new Superman to have the Max Fleischer logo?
I think it could be cool.
But my only
I've
response to that is that normies don't know what that is.
yeah, they don't.
They
But
they
it
need to see they need to see the red and the yellow, I think.
I think it's a way though to make him stand out, and it goes back to like that marketing thing
Yeah.
because the S and the shield, no matter what. Um, I got in an argument with somebody online because they were talking about being classic and traditional. Like, let's take it back to how Superman was traditional. And I put the image of Action Comics #1 Superman shield. Like you mean I was like, you mean like this? They're like, no, no. And I'm like, that's tradition. That's the original, man. Like, that's traditional. Um, I I love the Max Fleischer style.
I do
Always
too.
have. Um, I think it could be something really uniquely done. I've seen some cool fan mock-ups. Um, I'm not opposed to having two suits where you have scenes with him with the original Martha made suit, then he has a more Kryptonian made suit. So where you could get away with kind of a little bit of differences here and there. So
Um, you've read Dawn of Superman, right?
yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to get a good picture. Um, Lois doing her thing. Come on, super. Okay, so in the tight, you can kind of see in the
Mm-hmm.
he's got his trunks on. He's got his yellow belt. He's got his classic colors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think they're doing it right. Um, let me see if I can get a clearer color for you. Okay, so all the way down,
Yeah.
he's in his trunks. He's got his colors. Everything looks perfect. I think that
Yeah.
would be what I would want to go with.
I want a long cape. That was always
Yeah.
one is like with Chris's costume, the boots were too high and the cape was too short.
Yep.
So I'm okay. I would like I heard you're talking about like the yellow S on the back.
Yes.
I want that, but I want it. This is just me being picky. I want it. I want yellow S on the back, but I want it more in the style of how they did in the New 52, where it was black. Because,
Hmm.
but do it in yellow. Like it doesn't have to be that exact style, but like instead of being solid yellow, like it's just the yellow S with the back red.
Yeah.
Because I really want if we see Krypton, one of my favorite things from the New 52 was the fact that the cape was Jor-El's cape. And he took his cape off and wrapped Cal in it and sent him. So I like that idea that the cape that Superman wears is his father's.
Yeah.
So, and that's something I would like to see in the film. But I definitely do want the S in the back of the cape. However they choose to do it, it's definitely something I would like to have come back.
Yeah. If they could do it for the Christopher Reeve movies, they could certainly do it now with CGI.
Oh, it's so simple.
Yeah. I mean, just put the S up back on the cape, man. I mean, that is traditional. Like if you give him his trunks back and you give him his belt, his full belt, and his S on the back of his cape, I mean, that's all I want, man. That's
I like
all.
so one thing I will say is with Superman Returns, I like the belt in Superman Returns. I like that it had
Yeah, the
like
belt was good.
I like that it was yellow,
Hmm.
standard belt, but then it had his symbol
Yeah, on
as
front.
like the buckle compared to just this oval. So
Right,
that's one of
right.
those things I'm like, okay, yellow belt,
Yeah,
perfect, but we'll make it work. See, we figured this out. We got this. We cracked the
yeah,
code here.
yeah.
I
I think
am
so.
excited. Like, if you can see behind me on my, there's a box on top of my short boxes.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard to see here next to my bookshelf. That is called the legacy box. That
Ah,
is the box that my kids and I have made where we put our spare change or dollars in as we save for 2 years to buy Superman Legacy merchandise.
oh, okay. Cool, man.
that
I
is
dig that.
that is our plan because I got thinking like my kids are cool as heck, you know, and no matter what you thought about the Flash movie, it was exciting for them. It's probably the most hyped they have been for. My daughter loves the Flash. Period.
I love
Where
that movie.
my son loves. My daughter also really likes Supergirl. And of course,
Nice.
everybody loves Batman. We're getting two versions of Batman, and I had taken last year my son to see the Cinemark movie theaters did Batman 89, Batman Returns, and Mask of the Phantasm in theaters.
Hmm.
So we did a triple feature, me and my son did last year.
Awesome.
So we were all like, it was the most pumped we have been for a DC movie as a family in a long time,
Oh yeah.
and I got thinking about how much the hype was from Superman Returns and Man of Steel. And I'm like, I hope that's what we get for Superman Legacy. And now I have my kids to share that with.
Yeah. I hope the same thing, man, because Superman Legacy, it's gonna have to swing this out of the park, man. They're gonna have to swing for the fences. This they can't like do it just half-assed. I apologize for the language,
Oh, you're fine.
but they have to. Superman Legacy has to be like a critical hit, and it has to be a hit with the movie going audience. You know,
I It does. It has to be a general. It has to be the kind of movie that I could take my grandmother to see,
mhm.
and she feels like that's Superman. Even
Right.
though, and then
Because see,
if she needs to
DC
be,
has a problem with retaining their fan base right now. They have a fan base problem, and a lot of that has to do with like it can be traced back with BVS. When that didn't hit a billion, then Warner Brothers started meddling and changing everything. All the other films that were supposed to fall in line afterwards, it all became a big cluster. You know what?
yeah,
And so people kept coming back less and less and less. Yeah, okay, there was Wonder Woman, and Aquaman surprised everybody with a billion.
yeah,
But Superman, yeah, I think it's smart doing Superman as your first official launch into the DCU because you have to build as James Gunn. He's going to have to build everything on top of Superman's shoulders
yeah.
to make it work. You can't start without Superman.
I agree. Just like the comics, and DC really just took off with Action Comics.
Yep.
Um, and the other thing you're talking about the fan base, and that's going to kind of bring us into part of our discussion today, is something that DC has really been lacking is catering to children. And I say that
Okay.
as a father, and I say that as someone who wants to introduce my kids to this fandom, but I need something to show them that's okay. And
Mhm.
that's been a problem is you haven't put out anything really for kids.
Right, right, right.
You have Teen Titans Go, which will last forever because it's like the Simpsons for DC. It'll last forever. But
Probably.
you put out DC Superhero Girls, but that was so hard to find to watch, and
Yeah.
then it just disappeared. You
I
know,
got the game for my Switch and I was never able to find it again.
yeah, I want to buy it for my daughter. Um,
Yeah.
I ended up buying the Superhero Girls. It was on Netflix. The first season was. They never put on the second season. I just bought the second season digitally for her. But that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's no cartoons on for my kids to watch. I've dug out like all the Bruce Timm stuff we've been watching through. We
Mhm.
actually just started Batman Beyond. Me and the kids did, and that's where they pull a lot of their love for this stuff from.
And you know what's sad? When I was growing up, all of this stuff would have been on Saturday morning or afternoon after school.
Yep.
You know, this is how we would have consumed these cartoons, and we would have had no problem doing it.
And now there's no like, I feel bad, and we won't go into the whole reason why, but Super Pets was a lot of fun last year to watch with the kids.
Yeah, I liked
It
it.
was a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The kids loved it. The local theater by our house here actually just showed it on Thursday morning for part of their summer free movies for the kids and stuff. So that was like the first thing I felt other than Lego Batman
Hmm.
and Teen Titans Go to the movies, which I've said this many times. I prefer Teen Titans Go to the movies over Lego Batman. If
Okay.
anybody wants to argue with me, that's fine. But other than that, there hasn't been anything that's been like, that's really felt like it's been for kids.
Right. Right. Right.
You know,
Except for maybe mm, I want to say Stargirl, but I don't know.
see, Stargirl and The Flash, when it started, were very family oriented shows.
Yeah.
I watched all of Stargirl with my daughter, loved it. I love that show. Very underappreciated.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I hate that it only got 3 seasons. It didn't have the name recognition, but wow, was it a good show.
Oh yeah. 100%.
The Flash, I've been rewatching The Flash because, like I said, my daughter, she loves The Flash, and The Flash is great up till about season 4. Then it starts getting wonky, and
Yep.
then by season 5, by 6, I think is where it's completely going downhill.
That's when they should have just pulled it. They shouldn't have
Yep,
gone to 9, unfortunately.
they should have just after Crisis just been like, we're done. Um, but other like those are great because that's the family environment where me, my wife, my kids, we can all watch it together. But
Yeah.
there hasn't been that thing. But now we have something that's for the family, but is for the kids. And,
Absolutely.
and I have a soundbite I'm going to throw into the podcast here. That's my son because we watched the first episode of My Adventure with Superman, and I looked over, and my wife was smiling, my son was smiling, my daughter was smiling. They were laughing, and they just looked blissfully happy. And when the first episode was over, I looked at them. They're like, "Let's watch the next one." They were ready to go. My son
Awesome.
was laughing. He's like, "I'm like Jimmy," you know, and we were all laughing. And he took my phone after because I was like, "I'm gonna get this," and because we always do this a lot of times when we see something. He took my phone and he's walking around the living room talking about how much he liked the show,
Hmm.
and that's what we need, especially
Yes.
with Superman and getting kids back into these characters.
Superman is that character to do this with.
Yeah,
Superman is for everybody, but you can make a series that talks for like on the levels of the young ones, and it resonates with them. And it's resonating with people who like anime, and it's also resonating with people, my age who don't like bad writing,
yeah.
or like a lot of changing to the Superman mythos. But all my issues aside, man, if this show can manage to bring in and snag a couple thousand more Superman fans into the world, then it's all worth it. It's got my blessing.
I agree. Like any Superman that comes out is someone's first,
Yeah, absolutely.
however they see it. And if this is going to introduce people to the character, awesome.
Yeah.
If we were rewatching the pilot today and the kids just loved it, and that's what makes me happy is, the one thing I didn't mention was they did Justice League Action back in 2016.
Yeah. I
That was a
like that.
great show, and it just kind of disappeared.
It did. I loved, and it continued from Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, kind of.
Uh,
Yeah,
and it was loosely
yeah.
attached to that original DCAU because you had the voices back, which I thought was awesome. And but yeah, it didn't do anything. It had one season and that was it.
And I bought that when it came out, like episode by episode,
Mhm.
and I feel like Cartoon Network does not know how to handle any DC property other than Teen Titans Go,
Facts. Yes, I feel the same way. I feel the
and
same way.
and that's why I'm happy. Like I know that My Adventures with Superman dropped on Max, but I went
Mhm.
ahead and bought the season digitally, and I'll buy it when it comes out on physical too,
I'm
just
gonna
to
buy
add.
it when it's on physical just to have it in my collection.
Exactly. I'm a physical still collector, but I also like to support things because yes, I'm watching on Max, but I'm also like I really want this and I like this, and I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is,
Yep.
and have it. So, what did you get? Just we'll go back now. This show was announced almost. It was 2 years ago actually. This show was
Yeah.
announced,
hmm
and how did you feel about it when it was first announced?
Um, I was excited first and most of all to be getting another Superman animated show. The fact that it looked like they were going to be using anime was kind of like, I guess we'll just have to wait and see because I just don't get I can't get into anime. I
I'm
must
with.
be past that cutoff.
I had so many people my age growing up. Like this girl I dated, she loved Sailor Moon and was really into it. And
Yeah.
the closest I ever came was like Voltron
Yes.
and
I didn't
Gundam
even know that was anime until I was older.
and Gundam Wing. Like my brother really liked Gundam Wing, so I watched some of it. But I guess like for me was the original Teen Titans.
Mhm.
Teen Titans. Like
Yeah,
that
that
was
was a
the
good show.
closest kind. Yeah, it is kind of anime-ish to me. And so I was a little hesitant, when they showed the thing being a little anime-ish. I was like, ah. But no, I feel like it walks the line perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain characteristics of these characters that I have a problem with. Um, but overall, I feel like they are still fairly true to themselves. I just don't like the fact that they're all interns.
That don't bother me. I feel like it's fresh. I mean, my thing is thinking about today, like in the world we live in,
Mhm.
journalism's a dying thing. Like
That's
serious
true.
journalism is dying. Like I worked for my local small town paper for a while and it was rough, you know. So
Mhm.
the fact that they're starting out as interns, I mean they've kind of shortened that gap of age between Clark and Jimmy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, this is a question has been going around as we prepare for what we believe will be a casting of Jimmy Olsen at some point. What do you think is the optimal age for Jimmy and Clark? And we're going to use for the film David is going to be 30 years old as they start filming, and that's how old Clark's going to be in the movie.
Mhm.
So if Clark is 30, where should Jimmy be? In
That
your
is a great
opinion?
question. Because Jimmy is usually in his teens. Well,
I'll
I
give you
want to
my.
say, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you go ahead. I'll give you my rationale, my thought after.
Okay, with Jimmy for being the type of character Jimmy is. Jimmy has to be younger. So I would say early to mid 20s max.
See, my barometer is 5 years, no more than 8,
hmm
because I think you want him to be young enough that he looks up to Clark.
Yep.
He's more like Clark Kent's little brother,
Yeah.
but can be a friend, you know, instead of being like you go too far, it looks more like parent child.
Yeah.
And I think,
Exactly.
that's kind of how I felt like when you go back and you watch like the George Reeves series, very stoic, strong Clark, mentor, figure to
Yep.
young Jim. Okay.
Yep.
But I feel like now, Jimmy's like that third wheel of like the Daily Planet staff, that it needs to be shorter,
hmm
but not too much that you don't feel it's odd that they're friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the relationship between Jimmy and Superman in the Christopher Reeve movies.
I
They
still
did.
feel like that was a little, because
He
that was such
was.
because his Clark is such a, I would say close to like what I felt we were getting with Brandon Routh and Sam Huntington.
Okay.
That was a
Okay.
dynamic I wish we could have explored more,
hmm
because Huntington had that very strong energy as a youthful energy, while Brandon had that I'm still young, but I'm kind of more formed. Chris, but it's also that pre-crisis Superman
Yeah.
compared to what we've had since then. So it's kind of hard to juggle,
That's true.
um, but I'm with you there. Like, um, I do like the him calling him CK more than Mr. Kent kind of thing, like we
Yeah,
saw
I mean,
on
that
Superman
came to me
Life Goals.
from New Adventures Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman. And it's stuck.
CK. Yeah,
Stuck with me ever since. And it was just that one actor. It was the second actor that started it.
because when they brought Justin Whalen in, I think I liked the first guy that was Jimmy, but he was a
Yeah.
little too. He looked more mature.
Yeah.
Michael, I can't remember his last name. But they switched out the casting because they felt like he looked too much like Superman himself. That they wanted someone who could be a little bit more of like Superman's pal.
Yeah.
That's where
And
Justin Whalen came in, and I thought he
yeah,
was a
he
great
knocked it out of
Jimmy.
the park. Yeah, he was
Yep.
good.
So with the show, what else are some of your thoughts going on with it?
Um I don't I don't understand why, like, when he activates his powers, something activates on the Kent farm, where he went in to meet Jor-El. I think that is weird, and I know that's something very anime, but
Mm,
that is gonna be that would be a problem if this thing activates every time he's in Metropolis doing his thing or around the world. Eventually, somebody's gonna see this, and because he was supposed to be in like a little rocket, that landed on Earth. And then she's like, "This is what we found you in," and it opened up like this huge hole in the ground. I'm like, "What is this going to be? The Fortress of Solitude? What are we doing here?"
I think you're right on both accounts. I think it is the fortress, but I think because there's a line in the second episode where he says it's gotten bigger. I think
Mm.
he landed and it was small, but then it just naturally has grown through the technology, and
Oh,
it's going to
okay.
be the fortress, and it's going to do something. Because that was kind of my thought, like, whoa, okay, what is going on? And yeah, like the one thing that kind of bugged me, I'll say this, is he didn't use any heat vision.
Hmm.
Like when he was fighting the robots, I expected heat vision. That's one of my favorite powers.
Yeah, mine too.
Um, so I was a little offbeat by that. I was like, okay, what's going on? Um, but it worked. It was cool. It was cool.
Well, and the
Um,
fact that like one robot almost beat his ass.
and I'm thinking that there's something in his, and I'm not nitpicking. Like it's only 2 episodes in. Like I'm gonna give you time to develop your story of your power because
Yes. Yeah.
maybe he hasn't fully embraced his power, or there's something that's been kind of holding him back, or
I mean, there's always something that holds Clark back.
I mean, we look at Smallville, how like the idea was like this mental block that he had
Mhm.
built that he couldn't fully embrace his powers.
Right.
Superman the animated series, they kind of depowered him some. So I'm gonna roll with what they're giving me, to see, and it feels like it's a Clark who never really learned to control his powers. He just still
Mhm.
kind of bumbles through life a little.
Yeah, you could just tell that from the first episode where he was just wearing the hoodie, you
Yeah.
know? Uh,
And like he
yeah,
crushed the alarm clock, he ripped off the
right.
faucet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna roll with it. Whatever you're giving me, because this is as long as it's not nothing that I feel is completely out of place.
Yeah, so even though, like, in this TV show, he is said to have been dealing with his powers in one form or another since he was about 10 years old,
I would say. Yeah.
I would still be comfortable calling this something like Superman Year One.
Yeah, I agree. Because he's not, Superman per se yet. And I mean he does in the second episode. And
But I bet there's gonna be, episodes where he's gotta have a learning curve on certain abilities.
oh yeah, I mean, I was never like, it was always weird in Superman the movie how he went to the fortress and just kind of like,
Walked out.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um Superman and Lois shows some cool like montages of him training up there. You know, Smallville is, all about him developing and learning his powers, and I've always kind of liked that. So, what are they going to give us? I'm cool with. How
Yeah.
do you feel about Perry's? I think Perry's a difficult character to portray because I feel like so much of Perry isms were similar to J. Jonah Jameson,
Yeah.
and then JJ just blew up in the zeitgeist because of the Spider-Man movies. So it's kind of hard to be like, this is Perry. But how did you feel about Perry's portrayal?
Um, I thought his portrayal was, pretty typical Perry from a lot of the comics.
I mean, I agree with you. Like, I feel like he felt like that very, and I'm like, I put it in the perspective of journalist now,
Mhm.
how it's so difficult to like, you got the young kids and it's so easy. They want to post stuff but actually like you have to find the facts and just being kind of overwhelmed by
Yeah.
this is legit journalism, not your blog post.
Yep.
So I kind of got that worn down fatherly like feeling from him.
Yeah, especially when you consider like Lois, Clark, and Jimmy all look like they're in their very early 20s.
Yeah.
So they're all very green.
And I like that because it's just that little bit of difference twist on what we know.
Yeah.
We always get introduced in the story of Clark coming up, Lois is established. Well, what happens when like what do um the recent film Superman Man of Tomorrow, the animated
Yeah.
film where he was an intern and Lois was on the precipice of becoming a full-time reporter.
Yep. I love
I
that
like
film.
that, I liked that because I like the idea starting. And I like, Clark starting from the bottom because
Hmm.
it gets him somewhere to go. And with him on the bottom, there's not as many eyes on him. I don't know. It's a good angle to start him with and starting with a full-time, reporter and
Yeah.
there's more
This
dynamics
still
to play
gives
with.
him opportunities to like jump out of windows and
Yep.
go save a couple. So yeah, I hope that's the kind of some of the inspiration that James Gunn is going to be using for Superman Legacy, because I know it's going to be like a workplace origin story. So I hope he's more of the underling and Lois is already doing Lois stuff,
I agree.
and they get partnered up, but she bosses him around like traditional because she's in charge, and he goes and does these things and protects her from all these different things that she has no idea. So yeah, kind of like a lot like the first Superman movie. you know um he was very much um subservient to
Yeah.
her Lois Lane.
I really want a good dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, I have all kinds of thoughts about what I want in the movie, but I'm gonna kind of wait and see as we get a little bit, so I don't go on too much of these tangents of they should do
Yeah,
this. But
yeah.
um,
As long as it's look, I'm not going to say anything bad about Man of Steel, but except for the fact that it was not traditional Superman. Henry Cavill to date has not been able to play the traditional Superman that he actually wanted to play. So James Gunn involved in this. I'm hoping that this is going to be the most traditional Superman we've seen since Christopher Reeve.
I agree. I mean, my like I have loved so much of Superman and Lois.
Yeah, me too.
Like I'm not a person who's always jumped on whatever the current is as their favorite.
Mhm.
Like, new Spider-Man. Oh, Tom Holland's now my favorite. No, it's still
No.
Garfield.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Now see, mine's still McGuire.
I like Maguire as Spider-Man, but his Peters kind of feels like it should be a creeper. Like just some of this, like it just,
I can see that.
me and Jania, that's my wife. We binge watched recently all of that 70s show before that 90s show,
Oh
and we
yeah.
were talking about Spider-Man 3, and I was like, you know what? If Topher Grace had been Peter Parker, I think he would have nailed it.
Mhm.
Over Maguire. But I like Maguire. I have nothing against him. It's just there's little things I like that Andrew has a little bit better balance of Spider-Man and Peter. And I
Yeah,
feel like when he's Spider-Man, he looks like a Steve Ditko Spider-Man. Um,
fair enough.
but all that to say, like, I'm not always like when Christian Bale came out as Batman, he wasn't my favorite Batman.
No.
I wasn't like, oh, this is it now. I always I actually preferred Val Kilmer for the most, like, because he did more action in his movie, than Michael Keaton was kind of stand around. But
Well,
as
it's
I've gotten,
because his suit was so freaking stiff.
yeah, yeah. But as I've gotten older, I have appreciation more for the acting choices and stuff that Keaton did.
Yeah.
But Ben Affleck is my favorite Batman, even though I feel like once again, he didn't get his chance to really shine
Mm-mm.
by getting his own movie.
If he would have gotten his own movie, he would have probably taken the rank away from Michael Keaton for me
Yeah,
as my Batman.
I really think it would have cemented him more as this powerhouse Batman.
I think
Um,
so.
but I say all that because, like, when I say like, I did an interview with Ed Gross, who wrote the Voices from Krypton book, which is an amazing book for anybody, and he said I'm a Superman fan. I kind of go where the character goes. He's like, I don't really have a favorite version. There's things I like, but I enjoy whatever's current. And I was like, you know what, that's cool.
Hmm.
Um, but Tyler has become my favorite Superman because as a father of two, and the character of Superman being a father was always something that in the comics, hit hard.
Yeah.
It resonated with me. Technically, John Kent was born in the Convergence issues in 2015. My son was born in 2015.
Oh,
So
cool.
as
Cool.
I'm reading Superman become a dad, I had just become a dad. And so like that always kind of stuck with me. So like having this version of Superman on TV that he's dealing with being a father and all this, it just resonates with me. And
Yeah.
so like he's my favorite right now, but there's not one that I can say I don't love.
Yeah.
You know,
No, same with me. I love. I mean, I even love Kirk Allen, who was the first live action before George Reeves.
Kirk has so it's been under a year. My wife and I was watching all the serials for a podcast, and she popped in and out with me. And it's been about a year. And there's like a couple things that he's very like sarcastic at times, and it's just kind of funny because he's very like, there's nothing gonna get me now. Like it's just kind of funny, but he had the job of being the first one to do it,
The first person to don the live action costume.
and George, there's things I love in his portrayal. So it's
Yep.
much more of a matter of fact man. Like, so there's not a version that I can say that I hate.
No, I mean, we can go from Kirk Allen to George Reeves to the two actors that played Superboy in the
Yep.
80s, to Dean Cain for Lois and Clark, to Tom Welling for Smallville. I mean, I liked all these shows.
The only one that I will say is the worst, and I say this because it's on film, is David Wilson in the musical version that was filmed for television, which is horrible because they chopped up the musical, and because it exists on film, it happened. It's not like Poor Bob Holiday where we don't have any kind of like great video archive footage of him on stage, playing the
Right,
character.
right.
But well, we've kind of been talking about a lot of stuff. Why don't you tell us real quick? We'll kind of wrap up here. Like, tell us about your podcast.
Okay. Well, my channel, it's a very pop culture slanting type of channel. Um, I've been doing a lot of superhero stuff on it lately, but I also do reactions to music because I am a musician as well, and also a gaming channel. Because I've got to get in my gaming every now and then. But yeah, and we have people on, and we're going to do a stream tomorrow. It's going to be a celebration of Superman. Tomorrow
Nice.
night at 7:30 Central Standard Time, and of course you're invited if you'd like to come. And we're just going to be talking Superman and all the different forms of media that he's been in. So yeah, that's what we do.
That's awesome. That sounds cool. Yeah, I I had in my notes to talk music with you.
Oh yeah,
But I think we need to get back together and do a whole podcast and just on music.
that'd be great.
Because I'm a bass player and I have a whole history of playing in bands and I have a very fascinating story that we'll talk about. But hold that thought. We're gonna wrap this up, and I want to thank Shaun. Shaun, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Shaun Stackhouse Reacts on YouTube and Twitch, and Shaun Stackhouse on Twitter.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being here. You're welcome anytime. And remember,